Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Virtual Ninja Show. My name is Javier Soriano, and today we have a new topic about Microsoft Sentinel. Specifically, we're going to be talking about auxiliary logs. And for that, we don't have one, we have two guests with us. We have Maria and Yael. Hi, Maria, please introduce yourself.
Hi, Javier. My name is Maria Sousa, and I am a senior product manager in the Microsoft Sentinel team and the unified platform.
Awesome, thank you for coming and welcome. Yael, hello.
Hello, hey Javier. I'm Yael Bergman. I'm also senior product manager in Sentinel and Unified Security Operations.
Awesome. Welcome. Okay, so I think that everybody in the audience knows already what a SIEM is and what Microsoft Sentinel is, but I think it would be good to just give a little bit of background of what is the specific gap a SIEM covers in a security organization. Yeah, can you explain a bit to the audience what is the role of a SIEM?
Yes, of course. So Microsoft Sentinel is a SIEM, which is basically Security Information Event Management. It's a tool where you send all of your security logs into one place where you can have them analyzed and have logic on top of them, so you can have security value and protection.
Got it. And I guess when I send the data into a SIEM, that's basically the unit in which I'm charged of as a customer, right? I get charged depending on how much data I send and I ingest into my SIEM.
Exactly. So in Sentinel, you pay as you ingest. So if you have a large SIEM, you pay as the volume of the gigabyte set.
Got it. But I guess, Maria, that not all data is equal, right? Like I might have some data that is super verbose, that doesn't have the same security value that others. How do we differentiate between the different data types that I have in my SIEM?
We recommend to think of it as in two tiers. The primary data, which is like your hot tier, and this is data that you want to monitor closely. It's data such as EDR, antivirus logs, authentication logs, security events from Windows. And this is data where you will have analytics running and you will be triggering incidents and alerts. It has high security value. And then we have the secondary tier or secondary data, which would be the warm or cold tier. This is typically very verbose logs, so high volume, and they're not so valuable in terms of security. So you don't need to monitor them constantly, but you want to have them in case there is an incident and you need more context. So this could be proxy logs or NetFlow logs.
Got it. Makes total sense. So up to now, I guess we only had one tier, right? In Sentinel, we had what we call analytics log. Is this right? So how is this evolving to adapt to these two different types of data that Maria mentioned? Yeah.
Yes, so we came to the understanding that you actually don't have one solution that fits all, and you want to treat each log type properly. So until today we talked about analytic logs as the main tier for all data. Today we are presenting a new data tier which is called auxiliary logs, which is the ultra cheap new tier. It's based on different technology, and it's for a fraction of the price. You can send the low fidelity, the secondary logs to that log tier. And you can still create queries on top of the data, some rules that we will talk in a bit about, but it's a new data tier that is aimed for low fidelity, high volume logs.
Got it. So then I can still query the data that is in that tier. I send it kind of the same way that I used to send my other data to the analytics tier, and I can still query it like in a regular way from my normal query window, etc.
Yes. So you need to remember you are paying a fraction of the price and you are not getting the same set of capabilities. So it is limited, but you can go to logs or advanced hunting. You can query the data for the last 30 days. And you will get results. It's not the same performance, but you can still access those logs.
Got it. You said the first 30 days, right? So does that mean that after the first 30 days, that data goes somewhere else, or what happens?
So what you can do after those first 30 days, you can send the data to long-term retention, what we know as archive. This is also true for analytic logs. So if you're familiar, if you're sending the logs today to analytic tier, you will get a retention for 90 days. And if you want the data after that, you send it to long-term retention. The same goes to auxiliary. After 30 days, it goes to long-term retention where you can create search jobs and access the data via search jobs.
Okay, that's great, but can I run a detection? So the analytic rules that I can use normally in analytics tier, can I also use them in the auxiliary tier?
So the answer is that For auxiliary logs, we don't offer real near-time analytics, so you cannot do detections as you would on auxiliary logs.
Got it. But I guess we have a solution, right? So I'm sure that there's a way to extract the security, the valuable things from a security perspective from that auxiliary tier, and be able to somehow run detections on top of it. How do we do this?
So part of the main strategy is the new feature that we have today is called summary rules. So basically, it's a new capability that allows you run queries that are pre-built and aggregate the data on a specific cadence. So you write a query and you set the frequency. It can run every 20 minutes, every day, every hour. And those results are sent to analytic tier. So what you can do is send all the raw data, the verbose, low fidelity logs to auxiliary, and then create a summary rule that runs on a specific cadence, and those logs are the valuable ones are aggregated and they are sent to analytic tier where you can do all the analytics on top of that. So you can get the full security value at a better return on investment.
That's great. So basically there's a separate table that is created by this summary rule that runs every 20 minutes, 1 hour, 1 day, whatever. And then it will send the results into that other table that I can then use my normal analytic rules and all the other features on top of it, right?
Exactly.
Awesome. So Maria, can you tell me about some specific scenarios that we can enable on top of auxiliary logs?
Yes, of course. So the scenarios would require those summary rules. We have some scenarios in mind for this. You can create a summary rule, for example, to perform lookups against threat intelligence. I think that's my favorite use case. You can actually not join tables when you have an auxiliary table, but you can perform a lookup. So that means you would look up against the threat intelligence indicators for malicious IPs, and you can see if we're talking about firewall logs that you're sending to the auxiliary tier, you can see if any of those source IPs that you are ingesting into the auxiliary tier have a match with a threat intelligence indicator, which could mean that a threat actor is trying to get into your organization. And the great thing about it is that when you run that summary rule, you will only ingest the results of these matches. So if there are no matches, you will not ingest anything. If there are matches, you should also not have a huge volume of matches. So you could expect the summary rule to be actually quite cheap because those results would not be very verbose. And then the great thing about it is that with that result data set, which is in the analytic tier, you can trigger alerts. So then you could have a detection that would create an alert if a match was found. So you would get the same value, but for a fraction of the price.
Yeah, that's a fantastic use case, Maria, because I can send those very verbose logs, like from a firewall, for example, into auxiliary logs, and then be able to just extract the bits that are important from a security perspective, which are the IOC matches in that case, right? So that's fantastic. Other use cases, guys, tell me, Yael, what other uses can we build on top of auxiliary and summary rules?
Yes, so another great use case that you can use to get that value is anomaly detection, where you can send, for example, all of the firewall logs data to auxiliary logs, and then you create a summary rule that just summarizes the relevant data, like IP address or any important data that you want. You aggregate it, and then instead of sending 2,000 raw logs, you just send the relevant logs. Then based on that, you can view if there is an anomaly, a deviation, and you can trigger an alert based on that summarized data, and then you can create the anomaly detection on that summarized data.
Gotcha. This anomaly detection, I think, is super interesting. Maria, can we look at a specific example on anomaly detection?
Yes, of course. We have a demo to show you.
Yeah, let's do it. This is the Ninja show, so we only get demos.
Let's do it. So first of all, I would like to show you how to query an auxiliary table and how you will see an auxiliary table, what it looks like.
Sounds good. Before you go there, how did you get the data into the auxiliary table?
So to ingest data into the auxiliary logs tier, you will just use the log ingestions API as you do for other sources, using the data collection rule and data collection endpoint.
Got it. As always, perfect.
So first we will go to advanced hunting, where we can find all of our tables, and under custom logs, if we scroll down, you should have your auxiliary tables if you've created one. Here is our common security log _CL. If we look at the reference, you see it's an auxiliary table. It has a different color. It has 30 days of retention, and we can preview the data. Let's have a look. So common security log is our table for the Ceph format, which is typically used by many firewalls. And what we did was create a table with the same schema as the common security log table, but in the auxiliary tier. So we have the fields, the usual fields from the common security log schema. And we can see here, this is a deny activity from our Palo Alto firewall, and we can expand the message, and we have all the different fields that we get from our firewall.
Got it. Just a regular firewall record from Palo Alto, basically.
Exactly. And now we're ready to create our summary rule. So if you want to create a summary rule, you will go to Microsoft Sentinel, and under configuration, you have summary rules. I already created one, and we're going to look at outgoing traffic. And for this, we have this one. Let me show you in edit mode. Of course, we will give our summary rule a name and a description, and then we can either select a new custom log table or we can select an existing custom log table. The good thing about selecting a new custom log table is that it will be created for you on the fly based on the columns that you define in your query logic. But because my summary rule is already running, I have an existing custom log table, which was created the first time I created this summary rule.
Got it. So this is the destination table where the results of the summary rule will go.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that this table is in the analytic tier. So we need to be careful how we summarize the data. We don't want the data set to be too large because that's the point of summarization. It should be a summary.
Got it. Makes sense.
We also have diagnostic settings, which you can enable, and this will log information about your summary rules runs, which is a good practice to keep track of the health of your summary rules. You only need to enable them once because this applies to all of your summary rules that are running in the workspace.
I didn't know that. So when you enable here, it will apply to any summary rule that you create in the same workspace anytime, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
So now we will set the summary logic, which is the most important part. Basically, what we want to do with the summary rule is summarize the amount of bytes that are sent every day that go through our firewall. And we are interested in those bytes that go out to public IPs. So first we define what a private IP is, and then we will just summarize it in one row. And that's all we need, the total bytes sent per day. We can run our summary rule the minimum is 20 minutes, the maximum is 24 hours. For this kind of rule, it makes sense to make it every 24 hours. And there is also the delay minutes you can set up. It depends on how long it takes your data to get to the workspace. So you can set it up here.
Yeah, so I guess it makes sense to do it daily because we're building a baseline, right? We want to build a baseline of multiple days and see how it fluctuates over the weeks or weekends, things like that, right?
Exactly. For this specific scenario, once per day makes more sense because we want to know the total. So
got it.
It's perfect. And then we also have the result simulation here, which you should use to make sure that your data looks correct. Also to make sure that your result is not very verbose, because here I am summarizing it in one row, then I only get one row, which is exactly what I want.
Perfect.
And then you can review and create.
Makes sense. So now we have a destination table that contains the results of this query, which is basically the number of bytes that have been transferred through my firewall every day, right?
Exactly. And now we can create an analytic rule to detect if we go above that baseline too much. So this is where we can build the logic and get an alert. And that's the interesting part of it. Now let's have a look at the view runs history. And here you will see if your rule is running, if it succeeded, also the row count. It's good to keep an eye on it. Of course, because this is based on diagnostic settings, you could even create an alert or a detection to detect if it failed. But we can also have a look at the results. So now we can query our table. This is the results table. And I'll just run a query for the last 7 days to see what data I have in here. And here is our data with the total bytes sent. We also have information such as the rule name that is generating this data and the rule last modified time and when the run took place.
Yeah, those fields that we have with the underscore at the beginning are basically metadata, right? That is added to the table to bring more information, more context about the rule that was generating those results, right?
Exactly. You'll have those in all of your summary rules.
Got it. But we care in this case about the total byte sent column, which is the one that contains the amount of data that got transferred through the firewall.
Indeed. And now we can go and use this data in an analytic rule to find if we go above that baseline and if that could be an alert. So for that, I will go again to Microsoft Sentinel, Configuration, Analytics. This is the rule I created. So it's called Anomaly Detected in Firewall Sent Bytes to Public IPs. By the way, the logic both for the summary rule and for the analytic rule can be found in a blog post that Yael and I wrote together with Arya Gotzi. And in there, you also have more use cases. So I recommend having a look at it. So now let's edit this rule and see what it does. In this case, I'm making the severity low because it's something we should look into, but it's not necessarily a real scenario of exfiltration, which would be the MITRE attack tactic. So basically, we want to see if a lot more data was sent through our firewall, and that could potentially mean data exfiltration. For the logic, we are looking back at the historical data. Ideally, we should look back 14 days, so I will modify that. And the detection window would be 1 day. And then we want to reference the outbound bytes public IP table and build a baseline. So we will create an average for that. And then we will extend the baseline, the threshold. So in this case, the threshold we are defining is, I want to know if I go above 50% increase in my traffic, but it's something that each organization can decide what's acceptable for them. And if we go above that baseline, then I want to get a result, which would be an alert.
Fantastic.
So now we can have a look at the query results here and see what we got for testing purposes. And we can see that this is our baseline. This is the threshold of how much we could increase without creating an alert. And we can see the increased percentage, which is way above 50% increase. And that's why, in this case, we would get an incident.
Very good. Super useful, super useful. And without having to send all that data into the analytics tier, which would be much more expensive. So great use case.
Exactly. In the past, to do this, you would send your data to the analytic tier and you would pay much more, but you would get the same result, which is where we want to help.
Exactly. Yeah, so this is perfect. So, and you mentioned, Maria, that this use case, among others, is documented in a blog post, right? Can we maybe take a look at the blog post and see how it looks?
Yes, of course. This blog post talks about, first, what primary security data and secondary security data are. We've reviewed that today. And then you have the summary rules. And finally, the use cases, which I really recommend everyone to see. And here, you can see the queries you can use, including the data exfiltration that I just showed you. So this one is right here. And here you have the anomaly and also the detection that you can use.
Perfect. Super good resource to have this one. We already put the aka.ms link, the short link. We're going to put it again to make sure that everybody can visit that.
Yeah, and I like to add that in addition to this helpful blog post with all of those use cases, we are also planning to have it inside the product, to have gallery template with examples that you can easily use and implement for the popular use cases to help you write those summary rules.
And that would be as a Content Hub solution, I guess?
Yes.
Okay. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Maria and Yael, for coming to the Virtual Ninja Show and explaining this new way of ingesting data into Microsoft Sentinel, auxiliary logs. Super useful for customers. And thanks, of course, to all the audience. Thank you for coming to the show and watch us. See you next time.